students! Welcome again to my class. Today, my reading and writing skills students will discuss to us about the nature and definition of persuasion. So as they will elaborate on how we apply persuasion in our day-to-day activities. So please check this out.
Hello everyone, we are Group 4 aka Roz Frogs, and in today's video, we will be discussing commanding an audience via persuasion or using persuasion as a mode of paragraph development. A classmate comes up to you and accuses you of stealing her money. She even adds angrily that the amount she claims that is stolen from her is just enough for her to commute going home after classes. Naturally, assuming you did not steal anything, you would deny it. But your classmate does not believe you, saying that you were the only person in the room when she found out she lost her money. Plus, you are her seatmate, and you are the nearest one to her bag where her money is, she adds. Assuming again that her arguments are right, how would you defend yourself? The first option is to appeal to logic. Stick to the known facts. Reiterate that you did not steal anything, plus mention that the reason why you were the only one in the room is that you were the assigned cleaner for the day. You merely swept the floor and fixed some materials in the shelves, but did not move any of your classmates' belongings. You did not see any money while you were cleaning. Another option is to appeal to your classmates' emotions. Beg for a way out. Swear to her that you simply did not do it. Enumerate the consequences of being found guilty of stealing: long-term humiliation, a scathing reprimanding from both school authorities and parents, suspension or worse, expulsion. How does one recover from any or all of those? Win her pity as you try to sway her into believing that you really did not steal her money. The last option is to appeal to your credibility as an honest person. Since the assumption is that you did not steal anything, convince her that it's simply not in you to steal at all. You do not need her money as your guardians pick you up anyway every after class. You have your own allowance to buy whatever it is you need for school. And finally, mention that you two have been seatmates for almost a year now, and not once have you stolen anything from her the entire time. Convince her to trust your honesty as you establish a clean slate in the context of her accusation. Whatever your plan of action might be, you have unknowingly defined the three appeals used to defend an argument or claim. Appealing to logic or to known facts generally accepted as the truth is known as logos. Appealing to the emotions, particularly pity of your listener on the other hand, is utilizing pathos. And lastly, appealing to your credibility, moral values, or what the listener already knows about you is what is called ethos. It is your choice which of the three aforementioned you would utilize to defend your situation. However, a good strategy is to combine all these appeals, logos, pathos, and ethos, to establish yourself as someone who did not commit any misdeed. Assuming that you are successful in convincing your classmate that it was not your fault that she lost her money, what you can do is to help her find money she can use to commute later after class, and discover who the culprit is, if there is one anyway. As for who stole the money, or however particular way it got lost, is another story altogether. So, what is persuasion? The purpose of persuasion in writing is to convince, motivate, or move readers towards a certain point of view or opinion. The act of trying to persuade automatically implies more than one opinion on the subject that can be argued. Now that we're talking about arguing, let's move on to argumentation.
So for our next topic, we will be encountering and discussing argumentum and argumentations. So you might be thinking, what does argumentations have in relation to our topic, persuasion? Well, persuasion and argumentation are both somewhat similar, and in another way they are also dissimilar. For us to find that out, let's first discuss and define what is argumentations. So argumentations is simply an argument that is stated through personal beliefs or premises. Argumentations are used by anyone, and argumentations are also mostly used by writers and researchers to state a personal belief or personal opinion. And how a argumentation is done is that you have a reasoned opinion that is well supported by well-developed claims or evidences. Argumentations are used to make the listeners follow what the writer is trying to say, or try to convince the reader. It's like persuasion, but you will see the contrast later on. And for us to find that out, let's discuss logos, which is associated with argumentations. So now let's talk about logos. And as I said a while ago, argumentations are associated with logos. And associated how? Well, argumentations make use of logos. Logos also mean as the appeal to the audience's logic. And in the appeal to the audience's logic, you use facts and well-supported and well-developed claims or evidences. So a good example of a argumentation and a appeal to the audience's logic is, in a court, you are a lawyer of a victim and you're trying to prove a suspect guilty. So what you say to the judge and jury are your logos, your appeal to the audience's logic. You state well-developed facts, well-developed claims, and evidences. You say statements like, we have fingerprints and we have video footage proving that it is indeed the suspect that has trespassed the victim's property. So that is a example of an argumentation. And now we can see the difference of the persuasion and the argumentation. Argumentation makes use of logos. Logos uses reasoned opinions, well-developed and well-supported claims, while persuasion uses pathos, which focuses more on the emotional side. It talks about the morals, ethics, and emotions. It brings the readers and listeners to a certain point of view or the writer's opinion. So that is the difference of persuasion and argumentation.
The power of emotion can be overwhelmingly compelling, even when the odds of logic and reason are against it. Pathos is a term used to describe an appeal to emotion in persuasive rhetoric or other forms of writing. Understanding what pathos is and how to use it effectively will prove very useful to you, as it is a very powerful and essential tool to any good writer. Now, what is pathos? Pathos is an appeal made to an audience's emotion in order to evoke feeling. Pathos is one of the three primary modes of persuasion, along with logos and ethos. Pathos is also a key component of literature, which, like most other forms of art, is designed to inspire emotion from its readers. What are the origins of pathos? Pathos is originally a Greek word meaning suffering or experience. The concept of pathos as a mode of persuasion originated with the Greek philosopher Aristotle. In his book Rhetoric, Aristotle described three primary modes of persuasion: pathos, egos, and logos. Aristotle writes that pathos is a means of awakening people's emotions in order to sway their opinion towards that of the speaker. Plato, Aristotle's predecessor, took a somewhat skeptical view of pathos. In fact, Plato argued that pathos should be used more sparingly than other forms of rhetoric. That is because Plato argued that an emotional appeal could be misused to manipulate audiences, and suggested that appeals to logic or character were more beneficial to the public discourse. How is pathos affected by ethos and logos? When employing pathos as a means of persuasion, it's important to balance it out with the use of ethos or logos. Arguing based on emotion alone can lead to flawed arguments, also known as logical fallacies. Oftentimes, writers can appeal to emotion when the logic of their argument is faulty, or they lack credibility or knowledge in the subject they are addressing. Ethos, an ethical appeal, is designed to highlight the writer's knowledge and credibility on a given subject. Ethos builds trust with the audience by emphasizing the writer's background and experience, as well as their strong moral character. Logos is a logical appeal that builds the case of an argument methodically and rationally. Out of the three primary rhetorical techniques, a logical argument depends the least on who the writer is that is making the argument or how they are. Now, how is pathos used in building arguments? Using pathos is a very common tactic in argument and persuasion. Appealing to emotion can be a very effective means of sharing your frame of mind and persuading your audience to agree with your point of view. Examples of pathos in persuasion or debate include opinion pieces. An op-ed arguing against military intervention documents the human toll of warfare, appealing to the emotions of the reader to sway their thoughts on the topic. Next would be courtrooms. A defense attorney describes her client's tough upbringing in order to evoke sympathy from a jury. And the last would be the politics. A politician tells the story of a struggling single parent whose life would be positively impacted by policy that politicians is advocating. Now, how is pathos used in writing? I can think of 4 ways it can be used in writing because of all the rhetorical techniques highlighted in Aristotle's rhetoric. Pathos is probably most prevalent in literary writing. Most pieces of writing are designed to evoke emotion regardless of whether they are intended to persuade. Pathos pops up in practically all forms of literature and writing, including poems. Poems are often abstract and designed to be evocative and inspire emotion. Pathos is a driving force in most popular poetry. Plays dramatize the lives and emotions of fictional characters. A good play captures pathos in the feelings and struggles of its characters. Memoirs often focus on the most emotional and dramatic chapters of the writer's lives. Pathos is what separates a successful memoir from a dry recounting of the writer's life and accomplishments. And lastly, novels. Most novels are driven by the emotional lives of their characters. Most novels, or all novels, depend on pathos to connect readers with the characters and narrative.
Hi, I'm Carl Benedict Rojas, and up next we're going to be talking about what is ethos. So let's get into it. And we're back. So like I said in the intro, I'm going to be explaining what is ethos. Now, where did the word ethos originated from? It is a Greek word originally meaning a custom place, custom, habit, and equivalent to Latin mores. It is also part of the rhetorical triangle or Aristotle concept of the 3 artistic modes of persuasion, as ethos in this triangle is portrayed as the speaker. Ethos sometimes is called an appeal to ethics, then is used as a means of convincing an audience via the authority or credibility of the persuader, be it a notable or experienced figure in the field or even a popular celebrity. The ethos that we are going to be using it here is the one for Aristotle. Our goal here is to persuade our audience. Ethos may be considered an element of argument and persuasion through which a speaker establishes their credibility and knowledge as well as their good moral character. Now, where can ethos be applied? It may be applied to writing and public speaking, and all writers use ethos to a certain extent to establish authority on a given subject and to build trust with the readers or audience. Now we also have the 3 elements of ethos. In rhetoric, Aristotle explains that there are 3 components of ethos that a speaker or writer needs to establish when making an ethical appeal. So first we have is phronesis. It is the wisdom of intelligence you have as a writer. By establishing your general aptitude and ability, you engage with your readers and build trust. especially when writing or writing persuasively. Demonstrate a wide knowledge base in the subject area you are addressing by using examples and bring in outside research when appropriate. So basically, phronesis are useful skills and practical wisdom. This is basically where you are trying to persuade your audience, where you are expert at. Second is we have arete. It's the general moral virtue or charity of your argument. An essential part of using ethos is to explain the morality of your argument to the reader. Now, when you are doing this, don't go start assuming that a reader agrees with you or your shares of concept. Take your time to briefly explain to your readers your own point of view that you consider just and morally correct. The third one is eunoia. Eunoia is the goodwill you establish with the audience. Building trust with your reader or audience is very essential. The more you can explain the background of your argument with your reader, the more your audience can engage your work. So basically, this element is to find a common ground with your audience and start building your trust from there. However, you must remember, ethos does not belong to the speaker, but to the audience itself. Thus, it is the audience that determines whether the speaker is an ethical speaker. There are violations as well to being an ethical speaker, and I can name some for you right now. I'm going to be naming 3. The speaker has a direct interest in the outcome of the debate. An example of this is a person pleading innocence of a crime that he or she has committed. So basically, the speaker is more focused into seeing the outcome of the debate, which rather than convincing his audience, he is making it more into a debate. Second one, the speaker has an ulterior motive in the outcome of the debate. That is self-explanatory. He just wants to see the outcome of the debate, and he has something else. He has another plan rather than just trying to convince the audience. And thirdly, the speaker has no expertise to convince the audience. An example of this is a flight attendant giving a speech on a cruise ride. This is less convincing than a captain giving the speech. So don't speak about things or try to convince someone that you know nothing about, because you will look very dumb. And that'll be it for ethos. Remember, your goal here is to appeal to the ethics and morals of the audience. Use that to persuade or win them over. Okay, beyond writing academic essays, in which other contexts can persuasion be used? There are many ways to use persuasion in other contexts. Aside from academic essays, one is a newspaper, or newspaper column to be precise. This is a spot in the newspaper where a writer may express their own opinion in a few columns and may be able to try and convince the reader on their topic. Secondly, we have advertising campaigns. Now, persuasion is really used and needed here, considering the job of the advertising campaign is to promote a product or service, and you need to do your best to convince the people to buy the product or ask for your services. And lastly, campaign flyers. You see these campaign flyers when there's an election, and usually when someone is trying to run for a position, and people's opinions and votes are needed, of course. The purpose of these flyers is to persuade and convince the audience to vote for you or whatever position you're running for. Now, the ones I have mentioned are some that just came to mind. There are many other ways to use persuasion in other texts, not only these. But the one that I've mentioned is the one that just came to mind. And that will be all for my part. Thank you for listening.
Here are some three types of audiences. First one is supportive audiences. An audience that likes the speaker and what the speaker his or her has to say. This audience is willing to support and promote a speaker's ideas. Uncommitted audiences, an audience that is neutral or has not made up its mind about the speaker's topic. The supportive audiences means that you have spectators who already briefed on the issue at hand. You no longer need to tackle the nitty-gritty of your topic as your audience is already informed. Also, you can assume that there is a very big possibility that they will side with your claims and arguments. Hence, they have supportive. Logos is not much needed in this kind of situation, and your ethos has already been established. Instead, maximize your pathos to drive your point home. The second one is wavering audiences, which needs less convincing based on emotions and feelings, and more convincing based on your credibility and facts, examples, and evidence, or appeal to ethos and logos rather than pathos. The wavering audiences means that you have the spectators who are not readily accepting to your ideas, that may listen to you, but does not necessarily mean they automatically believe on what you are saying. Unlike with your supportive audience, with the wavering audience with the issue at hand, make use of your logos to win their support. And since your audience's belief in you is wavering, you may want to build up your ethos as well. Establish yourself as a credible, reputable, respectable source of information. Lastly, the hostile audiences may take issues with your topic or with you as a speaker. In this case, your primary goal is to persuade the audiences to listen to what you have to say. Once they are willing to listen, then you have the ability to change their minds in the future. In hostile audiences, this type of audiences is the most difficult to please. You have even assumed that they represent the opposing stance of issues you are about to tackle. Make no mistake in your claims and arguments, as your audiences is not only hard to please, but also averse to your side of the story. Lessen the use of pathos on these types of audiences, as it is quite difficult to do given that they are antagonistic. Stick to your logos, as you have good chance of being somewhat believed, but not necessarily sided with by the hostile audiences. Yun lang.
Now I'll be enumerating some tips that may help in better persuasion writing or using persuasion as a mode of development. Number 1. Pick a topic you're passionate about. You'll do your best persuading when it's something you truly believe in. Number 2. Know your audience. Number 3. Hook the reader's attention. Number 4. Research both sides. Number 5. Be empathetic. Number 6. Ask rhetorical questions. Number 7. Emphasize your point. And number 8. Repeat yourself.
There you go, mga students! You have heard the different point of views of my students. So if you want to share your thoughts and opinions, please comment down and don't forget to hit the notification bell in order for you to be updated if I have new videos. And don't forget to subscribe because as I usually say, subscribe now, laugh and learn later. Once again, ito na naman inyong gurong vlogger ng Kuwait, guro sa umaga, YouTuber, and live streamer paggabi, saying God bless you all and always keep safe. Bye-bye!